This is Dr. Kent Gregory, and welcome to part two of the discussion of competitive advantage and an analysis of how to measure it. This is based off of Chapter 5 of Frank Rothermel's Strategic Management and the fifth edition of that. So let's continue where we last left off with shareholder value creation. And now we're going to talk about economic value creation. So this is the difference between the buyer's or a buyer's willingness to pay for a product or service and the firm's total cost to produce it. So another way to think of the buyer's willingness to pay for the product or service is the price they're willing to pay. So the difference between these two, the value, which is the price the customer is willing to pay, and the cost. So the way to measure economic value creation is that value or price minus the cost. So competitive advantage can be based on economic value creation because of superior product differentiation or a relative cost advantage over rivals. And we'll look at two models that sort of sets that forth. So on this one, we have, I'll get my pen out here. We have two companies, Firm A and Firm B. Both are making essentially the same product. Firm A and Firm B, both of their costs are $400. So we see that right here. Firm A's product, the customer or buyer is willing to pay $1,000 for it. However, there's something special about Firm B's product, and a customer is willing to pay, or a buyer is willing to pay $1,200 for that. So the economic value created by Firm A is $600, whereas the economic value created by Firm B is $800. So the competitive advantage that Firm B enjoys is that $200 difference between the 800 and the 600. So forget this line here. Now we have another example, and this is where costs come into play. So we have Firm C and we have Firm D. They're both producing essentially the same product, but they're doing it for different costs. So let's look at this product that Firm C is making. Costs them $300 to make it, and they're able to sell it for $1,200. Firm D, they can make the product for $600. And they can also sell it for $1,200. Well, Firm C has the competitive advantage because even though they're able to sell their product for the same amount as Firm D, it costs them less to make it. So their competitive advantage, or the competitive advantage of Firm C, is that $300 difference between the $600 that it costs Firm D to make the product and the $300 that it costs Firm C to make it. The limitations of economic value creation is that determining value for consumers is just not simple. The value of a good in the eyes of consumers changes based on income, preferences, time, other social economic factors, political factors that may be out there. But to go back to here, determining value for a consumer not being simple. Think about if you were starting a company or producing a new product. How do you determine what the price that people are willing to pay for that will be? So when you put it out there on the market, how are you going to figure out what to charge for it? So that's not such an easy decision to make or a conclusion to arrive at. Finally, to measure firm-level competitive advantage, we often have to estimate the economic value created for all products and services offered by the firm. And typically we'll find typically firms don't just make one product or service. They make a variety of them. And if you get into like large conglomerates like Amazon, there are whole different divisions of the company that are making and doing different things. Now we could do economic value creation by division, but just to point out that there are some limitations here. Another way to evaluate the competitive advantage of a company is something that's relatively new. And this is called the Balanced Scorecard. And here we are looking at it. It uses internal and external performance metrics. So this may be something that sets it apart from, something like a SWOT analysis. And it balances both financial and strategic goals. So the four metrics that are basically used are one, how do customers view us? And this can come down to revenue, profit, and customer satisfaction. Then the next question that the Balanced Scorecard asks is, how do we create value? And that boils down to competitiveness, innovation, and even organizational learning. As a company, becomes more proficient and more experienced at making a product or service. And then, what core competencies do we need? So this flips the core competency question on its head, and something that I really like about this. It doesn't ask what do we have, it's what do we need, and that's a crucial question that's very often not addressed. And then finally, how do shareholders view us? And this can be seen through cash flow, operating income, the various accounting metrics, total returns to shareholders. So that's an important question. In some cases, we might adjust this to stakeholders, but there we go. So the advantages of this balanced scorecard: you can link the strategic vision to responsible parties. You can translate that vision into measurable goals. You can design and plan business processes, and you can implement feedback and organizational learning, and use that to modify and adapt your strategic goals. And again, that's another key part of strategy. Strategy must be dynamic, meaning it changes over time. Finally, the disadvantages of the balanced scorecard. It's focused on strategy implementation and not necessarily formulation. It gives limited guidance about which metrics to use, and it's only as useful as the managers who apply it. And very often, unless there's a company-wide encouragement or directive, these managers don't, or many managers will not apply it, and not through any malice, but just they're busy with other things. And then the strategy has got to be translated into measurable objectives. So not that the balanced scorecard doesn't do that, but it leaves open the room for that to be done. And then there's not much guidance on how to get back on track if setbacks occur. So those are things, were a company to use a balanced scorecard, these are things that, these are items that it would have to supplement. Well, I hope that made sense. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in to part 2, and stay tuned for part 3. Take care.